Welcome to episode 17 of Smitty's Endurance Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Smith. I'd like to welcome onto the show today, Danny Medina. Danny has progressed through the sport of canoe racing to where he's always in the mix for the top spot in MCRA races and many of the Triple Crown races. Danny, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan.
Awesome. So, hey, Danny, if you would start off by talking to us a bit about where you live, a bit about your family and your upbringing.
Yeah, so I was raised in Roscommon, Michigan. My parents always drilled a hard work ethic into me and my two brothers, which carried over to my endurance life. And now I live in Homer, Michigan, where I work at the Barton Farm. For those who don't know, is a pig farm owned by Bruce Barton and his family. I have my girlfriend, Cecily, who also paddles, and my dog and my cat.
Awesome. So Danny, growing up, were there some different sports that you played or was it pretty quick right into paddling?
So I was real into basketball when I was younger. So I was always really tall. And then when I was starting to get toward high school, I was paddling a little bit. Started paddling, I was in 8th grade at the time. One of the running coaches at the high school was Tim McClure, who's a paddler, and he told me that if I wanted to paddle, that I should join the cross country team and build my endurance up over the fall. So I got on the cross country team, and that's really where I found running, which I still enjoy now as an adult. So throughout high school, I ran cross country and played basketball.
Okay. So how old were you about when you started getting more serious with paddling?
So I did the marathon when I was 15, which is the youngest you can do it at, which I guess you could say the marathon's pretty serious, but at that point in my life, I was just racing to finish. I probably didn't start getting into the talk of being a serious paddler until I was probably about 20. That's when I started racing at a little higher of a level, and then maybe by the time I was about 22, I was really starting to make some jumps.
Yeah. Danny, how old are you now?
I'm 27.
Okay. So Danny, from when you started until, you kind of, we're having some of those breakthrough seasons, what were some of the things you did to get yourself to a new level?
I think a big part of it was just showing up to the races and being there and having people see that you're working and trying to get better. And when I first started paddling, I didn't really know anybody on the South Ranch. Might run into Billy T sometimes out there, and he might give me some pointers here and there. But the more I showed up, the more people would paddle with me. I remember Don Brooks wanted to paddle with me, and I was pretty pumped up about that. He was a guy way above my pay grade at the time, so I was happy to go with him. And then whoever else wanted to go, just guys around Grayling. And once I started driving and I was able to drive myself around to paddle with these guys, I was finding myself paddling with even more people.
How about your training, Danny? From when you started, did you do some specific things in training that you felt helped you progress along the path?
So when I started, I didn't do anything specific. I never did intervals, never did any like portage practices, nothing specific. I'd just be out there paddling. Whereas as time went on, be around more people and learn more ways to train. And I do those things, and obviously with practice you get better, and I do better at races, and that stuff just all carries over.
Sure. So Danny, switching gears a little bit, I'd like to talk to you about some of the different events you've done and some of the ones that are memorable for you. But if you had to pick a favorite race, are you able to do that?
It's tough between the marathon and the classique. I'm gonna say the marathon's my favorite because that's just the hometown race. It's the race that made me fall in love with it. But the classique is it's a really fun race. The people up there are great. I've been lucky enough to race with 2 Canadians, one of them 2 times. I really like the race itself. I like the 3 days of hard racing, and you kind of got to strategize a lot more than you would for, say, the Asable. And I enjoy that.
Awesome. So, one thought I have between the Triple Crown races and, like the Texas Water Safari, which I'll ask you more about here in a little while, but is there one of those races that you feel is harder than the rest, or is it just different?
I think the marathon is the hardest, even including the Texas Water Safari. I don't want any Texas people to shoot me for saying that, but I felt worse after the marathon than I did after the safari, and I felt worse every year after the marathon than I felt after the safari.
Do you think that's, from what I gather, being still pretty new to the sport, is, just observing, it seems, is it that just because of the pace at which you're going and the effort levels higher for quite a while?
Yeah, I think it's because you're going so much harder in the marathon, because the marathon is less than half the distance of the safari, which I don't know. I kind of think I might not have gone hard enough in the safari, but I didn't want to burn myself out. But you definitely go a lot harder in the marathon.
Yeah. No, I've heard that from a few others as well, as far as comparing events and why that one's very challenging. But so switching gears to the Texas Water Safari a bit, since we're talking about it a bit already, but I think a lot of people are aware of that race, but I would say less have done that race than maybe some of the Triple Crown races. Talk to us a bit about that race, Danny. What it entails, the distance, where it's located, and maybe some details there with that specific race.
Yeah, so the race is in Texas on the San Marcos and Guadalupe River. It starts in San Marcos, Texas, and ends in Seadrift, Texas. So the race starts on the San Marcos River, which is about 90 miles long, and then it flows into the Guadalupe River, which the rest of the race will be on the Guadalupe. So you can do the race in just about any kind of boat, from a one-man solo boat, which can be a C1, or solo unlimited, which we can get into later if you want.
Okay.
Or anywhere up to a 6-man boat. And I raced in a 3-man boat with Andrew Condi and Clay Wyatt.
Those guys did the marathon, didn't they, this year?
Andrew did.
Andrew, okay.
Clay fed for Logan and Chris.
Okay. So yeah, so you said, so you're starting in the morning, and then, that's a long time to be in a boat. So do teams stop and rest some, or what does the rest look like, if at all?
Yeah, so you have 100 hours to finish the race, which some people are just in it to finish. I'd say about the top 15 are racing it, and the rest are just out there trying to make it.
Sure.
And some people pull over and camp or sleep for a couple hours, and I'd say those top 15 boats that are racing, they go the whole way. Maybe 10 through 15 stop. Actually, I can attest. My girlfriend's dad finished 10th place. He stopped and took a nap.
Yeah. So, and then what about, like, in these long races, nutrition plays a huge role. So are you taking on similar stuff that you might take like in the marathon, or is it because it's longer? Are you eating some more solid foods, for example, or what does that look like with nutrition?
Yeah, I ate a little more solid food than I usually would, but not much. A lot of my diet for the safari was Spiz, which is just a liquid nutrition, kind of like Perpetuum.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, we'd eat some chips just for the salt, I guess.
Yeah.
And maybe some fruit here and there. And Clay's wife, Jill, she was our team captain, which is Texan for feeder. She gave us this banana bread at one of the stops, and it was great.
Yeah. So is that how that works then, as far as the support goes? You're relying on a feed team as well for that?
Yep. So you're allowed 2 people. That's it. Even for the big 6-man boats, you get 2 people. But the stops are a little more slow paced than the marathon. You'll pull up, you'll want to dunk yourself in the water at every spot. Maybe get out and stretch. You switch seats in the boat, so you get out and do that.
Now, I believe I know I saw some pictures from this year's event. Now, do guys even switch back and forth? Maybe at points they're using a double blade, and other times using a single blade, or are you committed to one the whole race?
Nope, we switch back and forth. We were trying to go pretty heavy on the double blades because it's a little faster with a little bit less work, but it wears you out eventually.
Yeah. Now, I've seen some pictures of those boats too. Like, how you mentioned unlimited. I assume that has to do with like dimensions and that sort of thing, and what the boat's made of. Is that what you mean by unlimited, or how does that work?
So it's I couldn't really tell you anything about the dimensions, but basically unlimited means it has a rudder.
Okay.
As far as solo unlimited, if you're determining between a C1 and solo unlimited, that's kind of the difference. It's a little bit different of a boat. There's more volume in the back of a solo unlimited than there is of a C1. But I've heard people call solo unlimited a C1, and I've heard Texans respond with, "Oh, that's not a C1."
Okay. And then how about the boat you were in, and then like the 6-man boat, like the teams who are, right up towards the front? I mean, are those are quite a bit different than, say like a C2? I mean, obviously they're longer, but is it a fairly similar makeup?
Kind of, but not really.
Okay.
The seat setup is maybe the same in the bow. And I don't know. They're not too similar. It's a little narrower. Obviously longer. Some of them have 3, 4, 5, 6 seats.
How about the stability of those boats, Danny? I mean, are they pretty stable?
I think so. I've tipped over in one time. But I think that kind of like a C2, a newer team might have some difficulties with it. Whereas me and my crew, we're all seasoned guys. We've all paddled C2s and kayaks, and
Yeah.
it worked on our stability pretty good.
Okay. Now, what about that body of water that you're paddling in? I mean, you said there's a few there, but I mean, I assume it's a little bit wider than most of the Asable, for example. How about, I mean, what's the current like?
So the beginning of the San Marcos, it's pretty twisty, kind of narrow, about as wide as the upper Asable, but a little twistier. Rocky bottom. And it's like that for about, I don't know, 7 or 8 miles, and then it kind of opens up. And it has some sections that'll be twisty and narrower, but not too bad. And then once you get to the Guadalupe, it's wide open.
Okay. And does it move pretty quick, Danny?
It does if the water's up.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. So Danny, I'd like to talk to you a bit about, some of the different people that you've paddled with over the years. Maybe not necessarily mentioning all of them, but maybe a few of them and what they brought to the table that made them a good partner for you.
Yeah, so I think the most crucial partner I've ever had was Wes Dean. He and I raced 2 years together. And before we raced together, neither of us had really ever had a partner that wanted to go for it as much as we did. So we were racing together a lot, and we were getting pretty fast, having the best races we've ever had. And I think that those 2 years of us just pushing each other and working hard and getting better really helped both of us in our paddling careers to get us where we are now.
Now, what year was that about, Danny? That you guys?
We raced in 2014 and 2015.
Okay. You guys have talks of ever racing again together? I haven't noticed you guys, I don't think, racing together lately, but
we raced Paradise together this year.
Okay, awesome.
We finished second place. We were really happy with that.
Okay.
But so ever since the last time we raced together, we've been saying that we're gonna have our reunion tour in 2030. So look out for that.
All right, fair enough. Got a few years to go, but okay. So Danny, what about some of the more veteran paddlers, guys that have been around? Maybe talk to us a bit about what you've learned from some of the more veteran paddlers on the circuit.
Yeah, I can't have this conversation about veteran tutorship without talking about Bruce Barton. He's been helping me get better at paddling since a long time ago. I remember 2011, 2012, I'd be coming into the end of MCRA races and Bruce would be there at the finish line. He'd tell me something I did good, and then about 3 things I wasn't doing good and how to work on them and get better. And I think he helped me a lot with my technique and some race strategy stuff.
Okay. And I know you guys, train pretty hard down there, but also, it seems like you guys often have a plan and you're intentional with the training. Can you talk to us a bit about some of that training, what you guys do on maybe kind of a typical week, for example?
Yeah, so it depends how things kind of work out with the race schedule, but typically the Monday will be the rest day. And then Tuesday, we might just kind of paddle, go for like a hour and a half paddle or so, just out paddling. And then Wednesday's interval day. Thursday, we might work on a skill like portages or deep water entries. And then just some paddling in addition to that.
Now, what about your weekends? like if you're, a lot of times you're racing, but if you're not racing, what would you do on the weekend?
So that depends on the time of year. If we're getting ready for the General Clinton or the marathon or a big race, we might be doing a long run, or we might go someplace fun, like they call it jungle places, where it's just you got to take a saw and an axe and maybe cut some trees down along the way.
Okay. So sometimes more of an adventure almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Danny, what about some of the other things that you do to get yourself ready for these paddling events? I know you mentioned doing some running. What about some strength training or other types of cross training that you do to get yourself ready?
So I like to work out throughout the winter, work out in the gym. It's hard for me to go in there in the spring and summertime, just because when it's sunny and 70 degrees out, I have a hard time being indoors. But I like to maybe get in there for, even if it's just a half hour a week during paddling season, get into the weight room for a half hour a week. I think that's really beneficial. And something that helped me a lot this year, especially with having done the safari, was a lot of yoga to help with the recovery. It's made me more flexible for sure.
And Danny, what do you guys do like in the winter? Do you guys do a little bit of cross country skiing too, or?
Yeah, so Mike and Rebecca and Bruce and Roxanne, they'll do a little bit more than I will. But I like to do some cross country skiing too, maybe do a race. Just no real expectations in the race, just go out there and get a good workout, have fun.
Yeah. So Danny, you mentioned Bruce and him helping you with your technique during those early years and probably even still at times, but what did you do different from when you started to now with your technique that's really helped you out?
A big part of it was I don't, they call it arm paddle as much, and I use more of my core and my shoulders, and I rotate more and I get a good leg drive, whereas I used to not know how to do any of that stuff, and I was just out there flailing around.
Now, Danny, I always like to ask about, people's equipment and how they feel about different boats. Is that something really important to you? Are you really into the equipment and the technology side of the sport?
I'm not super picky on boats. If I had to pick a favorite boat, I think it would be the Gillies.
Okay. Why do you say that?
So I've had some good races in a Gillies. They're really good for long distance races. They carry speed easy when you're tired. I think I might not be the ideal like size guy to go in a Gillies, but I make it work. I don't personally own one, but anybody who wants to race one with me, I'm always willing to go in one.
Okay. Now, are you able to pretty distinctly tell the difference between most of these different models of C2s?
I'm not super great at it,
Yeah,
to be honest.
sure. Now, like you've done several marathons now, is there a boat that you've done the majority of them in, or?
I've done a couple in a Corbin. No, they've all been pretty scattered. Okay. I've done 2 in a JD Pro 2, 2 in a Gillies. I've raced just about all of them.
Okay. So Danny, we talked a little bit early on about some of the different races that you've participated in over the years, do you have one or two that sticks out as being really memorable for you?
Yeah, so I'll talk about two if you don't care.
Please.
The first one is the 2017 marathon. I was racing with Austin Weiler, and we both had a top 20 at the time. And that's kind of where we thought we'd be again, top 20. Maybe if we had a really good race, we could be 15th. And we were having a really good race, running like 15th, 16th all night. And then around 4001, we started catching up with boats and dropping them. And we caught up with another boat at Alcona, and we rode with them for a while. We rode with them down to Foot, where we dropped them. And we thought that was it. We thought, all right, we're in 14th place. It's better than we expected. That's great. And then we're going downstream and we see another boat, and they look like they're dogging it. So we're like, let's go. We catch up to them, and they were moving pretty slow. So we gave them a little bit of a ride. We got to the train trestle bridge there, and we had to take off, and we ended up 13th. And we were over the moon about that. And then the second race I'll talk about is the 2019 race with Matt Gabriel. We raced to Gillies, by the way. That was just kind of a similar situation. We hoped to be top 10. Matt Gabriel had been 10 one other time before that. That was his only top 10 before that. But I wasn't sure we could be top 10. I thought maybe we could be 11th or 12th, but top 10 was kind of a long shot, I thought. But we ended up coming in the 10th spot, and once again, I was super happy about that, and Matt was too.
Awesome. So Danny, in some of these longer events, the marathon, of course, and really any of the Triple Crown races, the Texas Water Safari, I'm just amazed by, the mental strength of, the guys who are finishing really anytime throughout the race. What are some of the things, how do you feel that you're able to get through those long races from a mental standpoint?
So a good mental strategy that I've learned, it came from Aaron Rodgers on another podcast I listened to.
Okay.
He was talking about how he convinces himself that it sucks more for everybody else than it does for him. And that's what I tell myself. It sucks more for everybody else than it does for me.
Oh, I like that. I might have to steal that, Danny. So Danny, really all endurance sports and certainly, with paddling too, you race long enough, seems like, guys get injured here and there. Have you had some injuries you've had to deal with? And if so, how were you able to, get through those injuries?
So I've never had a paddling like overuse injury or anything like that, but I have had some injuries that I've sustained at work or, whatever, doing anything else that have taken me out. In fact, this summer, it was maybe, I think it was the first week of July. I had an accident at work where my hand was swelled up and I couldn't really move my wrist around. And it was like that for like 10 days. And I was starting to worry about my marathon, but luckily it healed up and it was fine for the race, but I was getting worried.
Yeah, that's getting close timing, early July there. So Danny, another thing I wanted to talk to you about, I know you've, done a fair amount of training and a little bit of racing in a kayak. Is that something you've done for a while now, or is that more recent?
Yeah, it's pretty recent. So my first interest in kayak came in 2019, which was the first time I went to Texas. I went down there and I raced the night race with Kyle Miner. The night race is part of their race series. It's called the MAC, Martindale Athletic Club race series. It's, I don't remember how long it was, maybe like 25 miles. And it's a portion of the safari course. It's from Palmetto State Park down to Gonzales Dam, which is where the Gonzales River comes in. So you race down to the confluence. So it's that last stretch before the confluence. And I guess a lot of people do it at night. I didn't do it at night in the safari, but so they make the race at night. Kyle and Caitlin put it on. It's a great race for anyone who wants to go. So I went down there. Me and Kyle are racing C2, but like I said, anybody, like, you can race just about anything. And I see people racing these surf skis and like these unlimited boats, and they're all using kayak paddles. And I came back. Also, side note, this is the race where I met my girlfriend, Cecily. So I come back from this race and I'm talking to this girl about paddling and like double blading and stuff. So I gotta start kayaking to impress her, you know?
Right.
So luckily, Bruce has every boat you can imagine, just about. And he has a surf ski that he lets me use, and he's teaching me how to kayak, which you can't really ask for a better teacher. So I was really blessed there. And so I had Bruce teaching me kayak technique and stroke, and then later that winter I stayed down in Texas for a few months, and I was on a safari team. So this is 2020 at this point. And we had a safari team. It was me, Logan Miner, Andrew Condi, and Ian Rolls. And Logan he's a really good kayaker. So he wants us to be on it with our technique. So every weekend we're in Andrew's garage on his kayaker, just going over drills, led by Logan, who's pretty good. He's a good teacher. And then we go out in the boat for a while and work on stuff out there. So I was pretty blessed with learning proper kayak technique right off the bat.
Danny, do you feel like that benefits you, both ways? Like time in the kayak helps you with single blade in a canoe and vice versa?
I think it definitely does. So once I started kayaking a lot, I could be in my C2, in the bow of a C2, paddling with a single blade, and I could feel the different muscles being used, as if I was, pushing with a kayak paddle.
Sure.
But I'm applying that to a canoe paddle, and I could feel myself doing the right stuff more. And I could tell I was doing more leg drive.
Yeah.
And I think that came from the kayak. So yeah, I think there's definitely a carryover there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I have a surf ski myself, and geez, I love the variety it gives you, too, able to get in different bodies of water at times and just mix up the training a bit.
Yeah, I have ICF K1, and I really enjoy that. It's really fast, so that makes it fun.
Yeah.
And it's just different.
So Danny, just from hearing you talk here, it sounds like, you've certainly benefited from, a lot of help in the paddling community, and certainly you've felt included in that. It's been an inclusive sport. What are some things you think as a community, the paddling community, could we do maybe a little bit better to get more people involved in the sport?
I think it could be out there more. I don't think a lot of people know that this is even a a sport. So maybe advertise more on social media to help get more people to the races to come check it out.
Yeah.
I think Sean Bravon does a really good job of promoting his races and getting people out there. And
Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah, I think the MCRA races as a whole do a nice job, but I agree with you. There's probably we could bring a few more people from a spectator standpoint. I mean, of course, the big races get some good spectators, but maybe not so much the regular weekend kind of Michigan circuit races are a little bit more lightly attended. But Danny, what about some goals for the year? Have you gotten there yet? I mean, I know it's kind of just after the season and we're in the off season a little bit here, but have you turned your mind towards next year yet?
Yeah, so I've definitely thought about it. I don't have any partners or anything lined up, but I think I'd like to do the Triple Crown again. I haven't done that in a few years. And I might want to race mixed in one of those races and go for a win in the mixed category. And I'd like to get back in the top 10 in the marathon and the other races too, but the marathon specifically. Sorry, that's my cat.
Oh, that's okay.
Ruckus over there. I'd like to be in the top 10 in all three of the races, but the marathon specifically. And maybe even if things go real good for me, I could crack into the top 5 in the marathon, or all of them, or one of them.
Awesome. Well, I think you're certainly capable. I'll be rooting for you. So Danny, lastly, I just want to give you an opportunity here. If there's anyone you want to give, a nice shout out to, be it sponsors you've had over the years or any other people that have supported you in a big way throughout your career.
Well, first I'll have to shout out my dad and Lost Dog Motorcycles. I think just about everybody I've done an MCRA race with over the last 5-6 years has had their entry fee paid by my dad. And he's been doing that since I was young, or way young, back when I first started. And then my second, Barton Farm Company, and Bruce and Roxanne and Rebecca for, everything. They've helped me improve on paddling and improve on my life, honestly. And, they're always so easygoing about if I want to take time off to go do this race, it's always no problem. We got it covered.
Awesome. Well, hey, Danny, thanks so much for doing this. I know people are really going to enjoy listening to this, and we'll see you here hopefully on the water sometime soon.
All right. I'm looking forward to it, Dave.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.